I like what you said about just, I think there's empathy kind of all around right now as everyone's sort of trying to figure out what comes next.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Shifting gears a little bit, one of the sessions that as we talk about the Young Health Leader Summit that's coming up August 3rd through the 5th in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, one of the sessions that I'm excited about is this entrepreneurship startup panel that will have Davika Wood, who's coming all the way from across the pond.
All the way from the UK.
Carolina. What's the name of her company?
Orca Health.
Orca Health. So Google them. They're doing some big things. Then we got Romy, who is doing a lot in the wellness space and partnering with folks across. And then we got Mario doing some things and a few others. And I say that because, and I don't have the statistics, but from an anecdotal standpoint, a lot of people in our network and around our network are either making the shift from kind of traditional healthcare, health plan hospitals to startup type Series B funding, folks that are making headlines, valued at billions of dollars or millions of dollars. And I'm not gonna lie to you, even at my, I don't know, my younger old right now, even at my age, it makes you take a step back, especially when you're in a room with all these people and you hear the energy, you hear the dollars, you're like, shit, like maybe I'm doing something wrong. But I bring that up because of storytelling and being able, to your point, safe space to ask questions, right? Because you see these headlines and it sounds great.
Tags. I think we've all been at the conferences where it matters almost knowing who's in the room more than what the conversation is and how it applies and things. And so people just sort of look at the name tag next to them and it's like, oh, if that person's not interesting or an organization that I care about, like I'm just going to walk out, rather than, so you already have that expectation that like I have to hear from this type of person versus I want to hear from all these people because I know they're experts because they're already in the room. So name tags with just a first name, I think, has really changed the dynamic for a lot of people. And then casual clothes really changes the dynamic for whatever reason. I think if you get, and I think it might be like the physician executive style too. If you get like physicians in white coats or if you get them in full suits and things in a room, there just becomes that sort of hierarchy of who talks and how you balance talking. And so getting everyone in sort of shorts and t-shirts and casual clothes with just their first name, you just fully don't recognize, and it just makes you a little bit more comfortable to share. And then just the directive to give them of this is safe space and we want you to have these conversations. And so that's what I'm really excited about, the Dr. Sook conversation especially.
We have Dr. Sook, who wrote that recent article in the Harvard Business Review, and this host of folks talking about the experience. And I'm hopeful that they will dive deep into it and really challenge the thinking, because I think the experience pre-pandemic and now are two different things.
Shoot, I saw a word for it and we need to steal it, but it was like a better word than workshop. But we've talked about this where we used to call it small group sessions.
Yeah.
I think it was small group sessions at one point, and then it was like guided small group conversations or guided focus group conversations or things. We're trying to figure out the best way to phrase what we want to capture in the way it's been described back to us, like the magic of events that we've put on, both Young Health Leader Summit and Road Trip, and sort of the experiences that we've created at different points in time. The magic that's been sort of told back to us is just, you've created safe space that we can like have these conversations. It just feels so uncomfortable to go in and sit around at a town hall or something.
HR for Press Ganey for, Morgan, who's overseeing her own recruitment firm, and these people in HR that are helping us figure out how to fill these gaps in, I would say, an equitable, sustainable way. So are you Elon Musk? You know him? So it was Elon Musk, and and I'll say it verbatim, it was a tweet that basically said, recession, bring it on. Hopefully that'll motivate folks to kind of stop sitting around and get back to the workforce, right? Wherever they are. And a couple folks I know reposted it and was like, I've been trying to find the words to say the same thing, etc. And then me like, and it's easy, and the caveat is it's easy to be middle ground. So I'll start off by saying that. So feel free to pick a side. And I was like, on one hand, as a leader, selfishly, I would love to have an organization where folks are back in and we're fully staffed, offering the high level experience that we know we should be doing. Happy people, they're not doing the work of 2 or 3 people, etc. But on the other end, salute to the people that have chosen like freedom and happiness over working for a company just for the sole sake of like paying bills. Salute to the people that are finding other creative legal ways to, pay bills without going to work for certain companies. So on one hand, from a leader standpoint, I would love for people to come back to work, but on the other hand, I'm empathetic to the ways of the world. And I just think that is a conversation worth having with, Cassandra Willis, who's the VP of Senior Vice President.
Health Leader Summit will have the great mix. And so you'll have the pharma people, you'll have the expertise there in the room to be able to have those conversations. And you get to have that sort of intimate discussion of why did you choose that? And what's your day job look like? And how many hours do you work? And is there good balance? And all the things. So you start learning of maybe that's a route I could take. And then internationally, this will be our first year where we have true flights from the UK. We'll have an attendee from Germany who worked for Philips and a bunch of different big global med device companies and really interesting background. We're in talks with someone who may come from Portugal. And so we may have 2 from the UK, 1 from Germany, 1 from Portugal. And then we'll definitely have Canadian, which I think counts. And then outside of that, there's a bunch of people who are also just really well traveled, either in their personal life or professional life. So people who've sat on, opened up Cleveland Clinic London or gone to rotational development programs at UPMC internationally and things. And so I think having a room full of people who now have been these places and touched these things and seen these things and heard these things and know a little bit, having that focused discussion sort of spreads throughout the group much faster than otherwise would.
These conversations will lead to real world applications and ultimately shape the industry. I did want to mention something because I posted it, and I think that, it speaks to your point around a safe space. And with the safe space, you can ask real questions. Right now you go to a conference and you kind of wait by the side for that individual and they kind of try to scramble and walk through, and you ask a question like, oh, what books would you suggest I read? You know what I mean? It's kind of like, oh, what's your challenge? What's the greatest advice you could say to me as a, younger African American, those kind of things. And it's like, I can email you that. This conversation around the future of education, specifically, what does continuing education look like once you get into your career, right? So you got your master's in healthcare or your MBA or your MPH. And the example I use is one of my grandmas, my dad's mom. So for those of you that know me, know that I'm blessed to have multiple grandmas and a great grandma who's pushing 91 right now. But one of my grandmas, every time I go home, she says, when are you going to get your doctorate? And there's no reasoning behind it. She just wants to be able to call me Dr. Williams.
I love that.
I conceptualize that as why do we make the decision to get a doctorate? And typically it's because of, sometimes it's goal related, oh, I need this for a job. And sometimes it's because a mentor told you that, etc. But as I've been watching, I think there is 1, unlimited options. And 2, I just think it's a worthwhile conversation because I've been immersed in this entrepreneurship world where folks are super successful and they're every day reading 200 pages or diving into white papers. And I think that takes a level of discipline that the average human, including myself, just doesn't have. We need that structure that school provides. So I just think as we, specifically us in the healthcare industry, we're all in it to solve problems, to make the industry better, to impact communities. Is it reading every night? Is it the doctorate? Is it another master's? Is it none of the above? So I just think it would be worthwhile to talk through that. And I'm excited to have Dr. now, Darren Brownlee, who came up in the traditional healthcare world and decided to get his doctorate. You got Cache, who has worked for the Cleveland Clinics and now is working for a stealth startup in the adult, senior living facility space.
Yeah, hospice.
Yeah, hospice. And then you have Jeffrey Roach, who has done a lot in traditional healthcare, has worked for Dignity Health Global, so they're doing education across the globe, partnering with organizations.
If you know your personality and you're going to be able to go in there and hey, I'm going to be in that room where 25 people are having this discussion and it's something I need to learn, it's something I can contribute, it's something, whatever it is. I think if you go in with that mentality, I would bet, and maybe this is the argument I'll make in this education session, is I would bet that money is better spent than any additional credential or dollar or educational attainment could get you. And so I wonder how, like, and so knowing that, like, how do you position? And I think some organizations are starting to look at experiences versus